Hi Stitchy friends! I recently completed a project that I wanted to share with you because it was super fun to make and I really liked the end product. I made a very simple, handy-dandy wallet. It's tiny and it fits in my pocket, so it's a nice alternative to a larger wallet or a purse, and it's something that I can just toss into my purse. This was my Stitching on the Go project during a recent trip to the lower 48, and I stitched it all in hand and with minimal materials. I also didn't have a pattern or a plan, so I just winged it. One of my self-imposed rules was that I wasn't allowed to rip anything out, and I stuck to that rule. I considered it an exercise in overcoming perfectionism and in getting things done. In addition to holding the credit card, license, and cash, for which I use it primarily, it's also the perfect size for business cards, so the next time I have a trade show or a conference, I'm all set. It's also perfect for gift cards. This can be wrapping for gift cards during the holiday season. Want to see how I made it? Come on, I'll show you. This wallet project started with 3 hem-stitched pieces of Aida. I made these while experimenting with hem sizes in preparation for our hem stitching class. They were just test pieces. I had no plan for doing anything with these samples as I made them, but as I sat around on my table, my brain began to think of things to do with them, probably to get them off my table and decrease clutter. The orange ones seemed to want to be a bookmark. The blue and purple ones seemed to want to be folded and made into cute little pockets. The blue one just happened to be the perfect size for credit and gift cards. Naturally, I wanted to embroider the fabric. Sure, the hem stitching is usually done after the decorative embroidery, but life isn't always orderly. At least mine isn't. So I'm working backward. For the hem stitching, I had made pearl thread out of 2 colors of DMC 6-strand floss, so I decided to use those same colors for the decorative stitches too. You'll find a materials list for this project on my blog, and I'll post a link to the blog below this video. I had just been to the beach in Oregon where we found agates, so I decided to make what I call agate curves. Mike thinks that description, or my interpretation of it, might not translate well for the masses. But you're not exactly the masses, and I have faith in you, especially when I show you this. These are agates. Aren't they beautiful? Whether they're cut and polished or in their natural state, I think they're gorgeous. I love agates, and I love searching for them on the beach. So these are my agate curves. Remember, I didn't create a pattern in advance. I stitched off the top of my head and I let nature take its course. I didn't rip anything out. This is just me playing with my needle and thread. I started with the orange floss, then added pink to the outside of the curves. I varied the size and shape of my cross stitches, making them 2x2, 2x1, 1x2, and 1x1. I did this for 2 reasons. First, it's faster than making them all the traditional 1x1. And second, I like the irregular pattern it creates. It strikes me as wild and kind of natural. I even get a sense of texture from it. When I switched to the pink crosses, I wondered if making them all 1x1 might accentuate the irregularity of the orange stitches, so I tested the idea. You can see where I did that right here. But I decided that diluted the effect, so I kept going with the irregular crosses. I did not, however, rip out the experiment, even though I didn't care for the result. Remember, that was part of the game, not ripping things out. After I stitched the agate curves, I added some wonky eyelets. I love wonky eyelets. In my mind, they represent sparkle, which goes hand in hand with agate curves because wet agates on the beach sparkle. I also thought they sort of looked like sea urchins, which also worked into the whole beach theme. I made some pink eyelets and I made some orange eyelets. Then I added French knots to the ends in the alternate color. These made me think of coral polyps, tube worms, and other ocean animals where the fleshy parts come out into the water to feed. You can see how my eyelets got bigger as I worked from left to right. I don't love that, I'll confess. I also don't love how these 3 eyelets are all in one line. I like how these 2 are entangled, but I wish they were smaller. Were it permissible to rip and redo, I probably would have, but it wasn't permissible, so I didn't. Really, when I folded it and looked at it again, I didn't notice the flaws, so I just plowed ahead. Plus, when it comes to creating, it's good to let go now and then and just let things happen. I decided the decorative stitching was done. I was traveling, so I had just a handful of 6-strand floss. If I'd had metallics or beads, I guarantee I would have added those. But for what I had to work with, I was happy and I thought this was done. Because I planned to slide cards in and out of this when it was finished, I had to cover the stitching on the inside so the cards wouldn't get stuck on the carried threads, and the threads wouldn't get tugged and pull the stitches on the other side. I cut a piece of blue ultra suede to fit inside the hem. Oh, how I wished I had a roller cutter and mat. But I didn't. I was away from home and all my tools. So I cut the ultra suede with my little embroidery scissors, and I trimmed as necessary while I was stitching. I used an overcast stitch and embroidery floss to attach the ultra suede lining to the hem stitching. I even used a blunt tapestry needle because I failed to pack a sharp needle. I don't recommend sewing ultra suede with a tapestry needle, but a stitcher's gotta do what a stitcher's gotta do, right? No sign of the lining stitches on the front, so all is well. Onward. Next, I needed to create the pocket. Because the edges are already hem-stitched, I might have used a running stitch, or a back stitch, or an overcast stitch, or a blind stitch to bind the two edges together, but I opted for the blanket stitch. I wanted pearl thread for this, so I had to make some with a 6-strand floss. I've been making pearls for years. It's quick, it's easy, and it's fun. I especially like multicolored pearls, and I used both pink and orange for this one. We have a video tutorial for making pearl, and I'll link to that on the blog along with the materials list. I folded the bottom of the fabric up so that the pocket just covered a credit card when slipped inside. Then, starting at the bottom, I stitched the 2 layers of the pocket together with the blanket stitch, alternating the height of the stitch. When I inserted the needle 2 squares up on one side edge, I flipped it over and made sure it came out 2 squares up on the opposite side so that the stitches were tidy on both sides. When I got up above the pocket, I continued around the flap and down the other side of the pocket. I counted squares up from the bottom folded edge to make sure the 2 sides of the pocket were the same height, and I knew precisely where I needed to start stitching through 2 layers again. Next came snaps. I wanted the thing to close somewhat securely because it was going to be holding credit cards, money, gift cards. I contemplated other closures besides snaps, like ties. I decided I didn't want to have to tie and untie a ribbon or cord, so I pitched that idea. I thought about Velcro, but I decided that was too bulky and noisy. I thought about an elastic band, and that was tempting, but coming up with one, especially one that matched, was not going to be as easy as coming up with snaps. I had a hair elastic that matched, but it was too big. I thought about those cool magnet snaps, but I want this to hold my credit card, and credit cards don't mix so well with magnets, so that was out too. Snaps were easy, so snaps it was. And that, as they say, is that. I have a new card and cash keeper, or a business card keeper, or a gift card wrapper. If you like this, now you can make one too. If you do make one, I hope you'll let me know and maybe send me a picture. Remember, a detailed materials list is posted on the blog. There's a link below. And there are links to tutorials and classes if you need further help with any of the steps. If you'd like to stay in touch or see more videos and projects like this, make sure to get on our email list called the Needlework Nutshell. Visit our website to sign up. Thanks for joining me on this Funke & Weber stitching adventure. Embellish your life.